I don't even know how to start this off, but it has to do with death. I think there's a misunderstanding out there about brain activity and people that die. Let's just say that from my perspective, the subconscious mind is equivalent to your spirit. It may not have much to do with your brain. And science is going to have a hard time quantifying what a spirit is. It's very intangible. It's like from another dimension, and they don't know how to test for it. And my belief is that true science and true religion are the same thing. If that makes sense. They have to agree. There's no way around it. Truth is truth. I believe that when someone talks about their subconscious mind, I always think that's your spirit talking. That's the intelligence, the knowledge that your spirit has when it leaves the body or joins the body. Someone was asking about intelligence and what you take from this life, you get to take into the next life. I kind of mentioned that it's kind of a misconception that we have, because knowledge is transferred much quicker when you're a spirit. After you die and your body leaves, your body and spirit separate. When you meet somebody, it's like you know all about them. You know the decisions they've made, you know the good, the bad, the ugly, and you know why they are who they are. And you're an open book. You look at a desk, and you're like, oh, wow, this is nice wood. You know all the trees that made it, everything that connects to it and is the reason it was. You know the good and bad things that happened involving that desk. Like if someone was murdered on the desk, you would know the events that happened with it, the history of it, the trees it came from. Imagine what particle board would do to your mind. You'd be like, whoa, 100 trees, maybe 1,000 trees. And you would know something about that. The intelligence communicating with you. Multitasking isn't necessarily a problem. And so people that believe in progression in the next life, there's still progression. There are many things that we still have to learn. Just because you think of a complex mathematical problem from our earthly perspective and the answer's there just like that, you still have a ton to learn. And information is different. The spiritual internet is way better than what we have here. You think it and you have an answer. To a certain respect, there are still things that you still have to learn, or unless you learn it, how are you supposed to keep learning? Granted, until we die, we won't really know. But I'm just throwing it out there that it's very difficult. And so, there's been some studies. I think in the UK, they did the previous thought about dead people is once the heart stops beating, the brain has 30 seconds of activity, and then it's done. Well, now there's the belief that when the heart stops beating, your awareness is up to 3 minutes after the heart stops beating. And I guess that's your window to bring them back. You got 3 minutes to bring them back or they're done. Granted, I don't know all the specifics of that, but I find it interesting. Or, and people have near-death experiences. They're like, oh, they were hallucinating. They were this or that. Again, they can't understand or quantify the spirit. I think in scientific terms, it's not even really an issue unless you're religious and then you're like body, spirit. They can't quantify or understand what we did before we got our body as a spirit. The type of education we have a thing we refer to as the veil when you're born. There's kind of this forgetful period of your past. We're meant to kind of fear death, even though in the eternal perspective, it's not a big deal. I find it interesting that when a child dies and people are like, where's God? If that child's in a safe place and they're happy, even though from our perspective, it's blocked. We don't see that. We don't understand that. But if you had a chance to look into the spirit world, heaven for 5 minutes, you would know more than everything that was ever written about that subject. Just because that experience is 1,000-fold of all our guesstimating that we do about it. And then there's a concept, my sister refers to it as angel time, where seconds become hours when you leave the body. Time is different there. And so somebody mentioned that, well, if your information is more instantaneously, does that what's the point of learning and progressing? And time is different there, so you have all that time to get that information. And my argument would be that it's still instantaneous there. Much of the knowledge that's out there, or earthly complex knowledge that's out there, would be instantaneous, and the other things you have to learn in the next life will be in a progression type thing. We're very, very dumb here on this earth. Very limited, very dumb. Life after death. Moving forward, you die, your spirit travels pretty much at the speed of a thought. Ooh, teleportation, what a concept. You're like, hey, I wonder how mom's doing. Shoop. And you can look at your mom and you will know all about her. Everything she's done, all the decisions she's made, how she felt about your birth, whether she liked you, disliked you. You will know all about her. It is what it is. You're like, huh, I had no idea my mom had those feelings or that trial. So it's very, very, interesting subject to me. People that were abused, all these things, from what I understand, it's a very unbiased view, because it's so overwhelming. You're like, whoa, you see them as they are. Like, oh, that person did drugs, or that person did this, or you begin to see that. You also see what your decisions have made. I refer to it as the ripple effect. So you're grumpy. Hey, leave me alone. And that person had a bad day, and they go home and take it out on their kids to a certain percentage. And, you see that chain reaction of events. In one story, the guy was bullied. He saw that when he stood up to the bully, that gave the bully strength to stand up to his father, who was the real bully, and ask him to leave later on. So I know there's a big anti-bully campaign and so forth, but all these things, these trials are put in front of us for a reason. We don't realize that bully gave the kid a chance to make or break him, stand up, face the bully, because he kind of turned the cheek for a long time for whatever reason. When he stood up, it helped him, and then it helped the bully stand up to his father. And so you see that ripple effect and breaking that chain, or making more chains in the people around you. The relationships, very important. It's anyway, it's very, very deep stuff. And when you die, you go to the spirit world, which is kind of here on earth. The spirits hanging around bugging people, they really have no business doing it unless it's for a good cause. Most of them hanging around won't let go and progress from their earthly state. So what holds them here is, if you are too worldly, it's hard to leave. Oh, my finances, my finances. Oh, I'm addicted to certain things in life. And that makes it very difficult to progress and move on. So when it talks about taking your intelligence with you, I think it's more talking about your habits, your talents, that faith, hope, charity, learning those intelligence traits, true traits that you get to take with you. And if you're a PhD in this earth, it won't matter that much when you die, because that information is right there. All that earthly smarts is right there. Now, progressing on to your, whatever you believe, helping out with the creation, or being an angel, or progressing on, and so forth, or families are forever, whatever you believe, it'll be way better than what you can imagine. That's my thought process on death and the knowledge that you take with you. Very hard to quantify. I could be totally wrong, but just from what I have, what I'm aware of, that's how I see it. And I think it's okay to believe whatever you want, because in the end, all my misconceptions will, hey, wake up, you're wrong. That is not a correct perspective or view. And so I'll have that awakening moment. And if you're non-religious, that's okay too. There was a atheist that died, met Jesus, whatever. He's like, are you God? And he's like, I am. And he's like, but you don't exist. And he said Jesus just smiled at him like a little baby said something cute. And he gave that person the time to figure it out. So not for 1 second do I believe because you're agnostic, you're an atheist, or you believe what you want to, that you're destined to hell and damnation. And he took that atheist guy aside and he said, hey, I allowed you to be in that family of atheists, and when you grew up and when you fell in life and there was no one there to pick you up, you didn't have friends, you didn't have religion, you didn't have these things to help pick you back up. He says, you got back up on your own. He says, that's character. He says, I need people with that character in the next life to help rule things for me. And that's how I see it. So I really don't care what you believe, because I know that the awakening moment will come. And when it does, you know, you will have your own time to process it and be like, I guess there is a God. I'm just throwing it out there that I don't care what you believe in, that there's opportunity for everyone in this life and the next. And there are some benefits for figuring it out in this life. There's less aha moments in the next, or less maybe habits we need to overcome in the next. That's my 2 cents on it. Hopefully, if anything, I gave you something to think about, because the reality is we just don't know. At the same time, there are some neat concepts out there, theories out there that may or not be true. I love how when we argue science, everybody's arguing theories and they say facts. Cracks me up. It's a proven fact that no, that's a theory, man. That's a theory. Anyway, not that it really matters, because we all have preconceived misconceptions. So, all right, that's it. Like and subscribe to hear more nonsense, and we'll see you next time. Bye.